Hey guys, tonight we begin not with glory but with grime. You wake up coughing again. It's always the coughing that starts the day. Not a dainty, polite little throat clear. No, this is a full bodied, chest rattling, lung clawing hack that feels like it's trying to evacuate a pebble from your windpipe. And frankly, it might be. You sleep in a room the size of a janitor's closet, shared with two siblings, one bedbug colony, and whatever creature was scratching inside the wall at 3 a.m. The wallpaper, if it ever was paper, is now just a smudged mosaic of damp, soot, and hopeless resignation. There's a small window, though it hasn't opened since the queen was a teenager, and mostly serves to let in more frost than light. The air inside isn't just stale, it's got flavor. A savory mix of coal dust, foot sweat, and a hint of mold. Your blanket smells like yesterday's work shift and possibly something dead. And your pillow? It's an old sack stuffed with something that once resembled straw, now flattened into a pancake of industrial misery. Your body aches, knees, back, neck. It's like you slept on a staircase made of regrets. Your joints pop when you sit up, the kind of sound that suggests maybe you were born old and the Industrial Revolution simply brought you home. You're 12, by the way. Welcome to adulthood. There's no real ceremony to getting dressed. You reach for the same clothes you wore yesterday and the day before that. Trousers, stiff with dried soot. A shirt with holes too strategic to be accidental. A woolen scarf that used to be white, but now serves more as camouflage against the yard's eternal layer of ash. You lace up your boots, or rather, you wrap twine around what's left of them, and hope your big toe doesn't sneak out again. Some days, it plays peekaboo with frostbite. The room's only fire long gave up trying. The embers in the hearth look like they too have respiratory issues. You tug on your coat, more patch than fabric, and shuffle into the main room where your mum is already awake, boiling what she insists is tea, but might actually be warm dishwater, with optimism. The coal pile by the hearth is gone, of course. You've already burned through your week's ration. She tosses in a splintered chair leg instead. Breakfast is waiting, and by breakfast, we mean bread that might be bread. Hard, cold, and dusted with a fine layer of ash. There's also a bit of jam if you're lucky, so thinly spread it could be considered theoretical. Maybe some drips of yesterday's tea. It doesn't warm you, but it stops your stomach from starting a union. The floor creaks as your father limps in. He hasn't stood straight in years. His spine curves like a rusted question mark. He was a coal porter once, until the accident. Now he leans on a stick that was probably part of a fence in a better life. He nods to you, says nothing, just stares at the window, like it owes him money. Your little sister sneezes. It echoes strangely in the cramped room. She's been sneezing for days. Could be a cold. Could be something worse. But the doctor's a half day's walk away and costs more than your mother's weekly wage. So she gets an old rag for a tissue and a boiled onion for comfort. Outside, the morning fog isn't fog at all. It's smoke. Thick, sour, gray. It hangs over the rooftops like a damp blanket no one asked for. The town is already humming. Carts creak, boots crunch, and factory whistles pierce the air like aggressive roosters. That means it's time. You step outside and breathe in deeply. Mistake. The air tastes like burnt toast mixed with regret. Your lungs protest, but you've got no time for that. The sorting yard waits. The road is a mixture of ice, mud, and animal-related surprises. Your boots squelch, slip, then finally accept defeat. Every step forward is a negotiation with the earth. You pass by other kids, all roughly your age, all with the same look: sooty, sunken, sleepy. One of them waves. You nod back. Conversation costs energy, and you need that for the yard. You glance at the houses you pass, terraced, damp, and built with the architectural charm of damp cardboard. Historians still argue whether these back to backs were a sign of industrial efficiency or just a creative way to invent tuberculosis. You're not an architect. You just know the roofs leak and the walls have ears, cold ones. By the time you reach the yard, your fingers are already numb. You flex them, trying to wake them up before the real work begins. Someone lights a pipe nearby. The smoke coils into your eyes like it's personal. You don't even blink. You step inside the yard, and the smell hits you like a wave. Coal, sweat, wet boots, and despair. The piles of black rock glisten like shark skin under the gray sky. You can already hear the clang of shovels and the wheeze of workers coughing out chunks of last week. It's not even sunrise. No one greets you. No one has to. You all know the drill: sift, shovel, stack. The rhythm of survival in industrial Britain. And here you are, 13 pounds underweight, 3 years, underage, and already 2 decades tired. But hey, at least it's not raining. Yet, the bread from breakfast still scratches your throat as you pick coal dust out from the corners of your mouth. Somehow, even when you don't remember biting into it, there's always some stuck in your teeth. It's a flavor combination few people crave: stale crust, mineral tang, and just a hint of smoke, but it keeps you from fainting. Most days, you don't really eat meals. You encounter them. This morning's version might have been a crust left over from last night, softened by tea steam and optimism. Or maybe someone dropped it near the hearth and you just didn't ask questions. The tea, if you're feeling bold enough to call it that, tastes vaguely like tin and overboiled leaves. But it's warm, and in this world, warm means mercy. In the corner of the sorting yard, someone's chewing on a raw turnip. It looks like a dare. You make eye contact, and they shrug as if to say, better this than nothing. They're not wrong. Hunger doesn't come in waves anymore. It's just a low, constant thrum behind your ribs, like a warning drum that never stops. You take your place at the sorting piles. The coal comes in big, angry clumps, jagged edges smudged black, sometimes still steaming if the delivery was recent. Your job? Break it apart, sort it by size, and try not to lose a fingertip in the process. The good stuff gets sent off to warm, fancy houses you'll never see. The rest goes to factories, blackening the skies and the insides of people's lungs in equal measure. And the dust, oh, the dust. It's everywhere. In your nose, your eyes, your ears, inside your sleeves, under your nails, coating your tongue. You haven't seen the real color of your hands in months. You remember a time when your fingernails weren't black, but it's like trying to remember the taste of cake, fuzzy and suspiciously hopeful. You kneel, always kneeling, in mud that isn't quite solid and isn't quite liquid either. The ground here is perpetually damp, like it's trying to soak through your skin and become part of you. Your knees are always cold, always. Your trousers are patched with old curtain fabric, and the stuffing is, well, someone once said it was rabbit hair. That someone also sold miracle cures made of gin and moss. So, grain of soot. The sun peers weakly through the smoke above, giving the yard a kind of eternal twilight. Everything is gray, except the occasional orange flare from a match, or the white flash of someone's eyes when the wind hits their face. And you're not alone. There's the gang, your fellow sufferers, Sifters, shovelers, stackers, you all wear the same expression: resigned confusion. Like you accidentally applied for a job in the underworld and no one told you how long the hours were. There's Charlie, who's 14 but looks 30. He's got that permanent squint from too many early mornings and a cough that sounds like a broken accordion. He wears a scarf his mum knit before she ran off to be a washerwoman for the Navy. He never talks about her. You don't ask. Beside him, there's Nell, who might be 12 or might be 40. It depends on the light. She wears a bonnet that used to be blue, now a vague slate color, and she swears it keeps the dust out of her ears. She's always chewing something. No one knows what. Best not to pry. Jasper stands nearby, not working yet, just watching. He's missing 2 fingers and 1 eyebrow, which is the story that involves fireworks, a chimney sweep's revenge, and half a bottle of kerosene. Jasper mostly supervises, unofficially. Points out when a load's too big or when the boss is coming. He's got eyes in the back of his soot-blackened head. And then there's Percy the rat. Not a person, a rat. An actual rat. He's been in the yard longer than you, lives under the storage crate and occasionally steals crumbs right out of workers' coat pockets. He's missing an ear and walks with a limp. The other rats respect him, probably more than they respect you. Your fingers start to go numb, so you shift your weight and slap them against your legs. The cold bites into your palms, sharp and unapologetic. A cut here, a scrape there. It's part of the uniform. Some folks wear gloves, or at least bits of them. You've got mittens made from a ripped coat sleeve and optimism. They help. Barely. The overseer walks by. You spot him from a mile off because, of course, he's wearing a perfectly clean coat. Velvet, probably. Navy blue. Probably hasn't touched a coal shard in his life. His mustache is so symmetrical it could be used as a ruler. He strolls like he owns the smog. And technically he does. He doesn't speak, just stares. Occasionally shouts something like, "Keep it moving," or "That's a premium lump." Then vanishes into his warm office, where there's a fire and tea and probably something ridiculous like a clean chair. Nobody really likes him, but you all agree. The mustache is impressive. Evil, but impressive. You shift again. Your back pops. That's the 3rd pop today, and it's not even midday. You stretch once, carefully, so no one thinks you're slacking. Jasper nods approvingly. Above the yard, a factory whistle screams. Not yours, somewhere off near the weaving mills, but it marks time in a way clocks never do. Halfway to lunch, which means halfway to not collapsing. You look around and take stock. Your boots are soaked. Your fingers are bleeding slightly. Your breath comes out in short, wheezy puffs. And you've got about 6 more hours to go. But hey, Nell's chewing rhythmically, Percy's stealing someone's sandwich, and you didn't fall face first into the coal pile this morning. Call it a win. You trudge. Your boots, if they can still be called that, squelch with every step through the yard's sticky cocktail of coal dust, mud, and discarded pipe ash. A mix so foul it should come with a warning label. You'd swear the ground here has ambitions. It's trying to swallow your feet whole, inch by inch, like a particularly judgmental swamp. The sorting yard fades behind you as you cross into the outer ring of the coal depot, known unofficially and entirely without affection as the sludge zone. It's where the wagons arrive from the mine, groaning under tons of freshly dug black treasure. Treasure, of course, being a relative term. No pirates would fight you for it. They'd probably offer to help carry it just for the warmth. Your job this morning, Assist with offloading. That's a generous phrase. What it actually means is grabbing chunks of coal the size of your head and tossing them onto the sorting piles while trying not to dislocate your spine. It's like playing a game of hot potato, if the potatoes were jagged, cursed, and occasionally exploded when wet. The air here is thicker, not metaphorically, actually thicker. It feels like breathing through a wet sock dipped in soot. You wipe your sleeve across your nose and realize it leaves a black smear behind on both your face and the sleeve. Perfect. Now you're camouflaged for the part of the day where you pretend not to exist. The wagon driver eyes you from above. He's got the look of a man who's seen too much and cared too little. He shouts something unintelligible. You nod anyway, because whether he said, "Be careful" or "Watch your face," it's too late. The first load comes tumbling down, and you leap out of the way with all the grace of a startled cat. You and two others start hauling the coal into loose piles. Your hands burn with cold and sting with friction. You know from experience that the worst part isn't the sharp edges. It's when your fingers go numb and you keep going. Because that's how people lose chunks of themselves without noticing until lunch. A girl next to you, barely 10, works silently. She wears a scarf so tattered it might just be optimism knitted into string. Her cheeks are pink from cold, or maybe windburn. She doesn't speak. She just works. You don't ask her name. No one does. Around here, people vanish sometimes. It's easier not to get too attached. You glance across the yard and spot something oddly cheerful. Chalk drawings on a wall. A smiling sun. A stick figure with arms raised. What looks like a donkey with a top hat. It's the kind of thing that shouldn't survive in a place like this. But there it is. A 3-foot rebellion in childish scribbles. You wonder who drew it. You hope they're still alive. You're about to return to the pile when your foot slips, just slightly, and you catch yourself on a nearby rail. Your knee bends the wrong way for a second, and you feel a hot burst of pain flash behind it. For one breath, you panic. A twisted knee means days off. Days off mean no pay. No pay means no food. But it passes. Just strained. Not ruined. You exhale and keep working. The foreman passes by again. This one's different from the mustached aristocrat who floats in and out like a villain in a serialized penny novel. This one actually yells. He wears a red scarf and a permanent scowl, and he smells like tobacco and roasted despair. He barks something about faster, you lot, and kicks a rock near your foot, missing your toes by an inch. You nod and shovel harder, because the alternative is being noticed. And being noticed usually means pain, or extra shifts, or a public lecture on your laziness that makes everyone else glare at you for slowing things down. You haul another load and another. The rhythm is numbing. Scoop, lift, toss, kneel, sift, toss, breathe, cough, repeat. You let your mind wander while your body goes through the motions. You imagine other jobs, softer ones, tailors, bakers. Maybe you could sell ribbons or polish doorknobs for rich people. But then you remember, those jobs take connections, training, or at least clean clothes. You have coal dust and calluses. You shift your weight and realize one of your boots is leaking again. The hole's back. It lets in cold like a tiny enthusiastic burglar. You stuff a rag into it and pretend you don't feel the slush squish every time you step. At one point, the older boys start singing. Not well, and not loud. Just enough to break the silence. A song about a woman with a crooked nose and terrible aim. You catch yourself smiling, just for a second. Then the wind picks up and you taste sulfur on your tongue. Historians still argue whether this level of child labor was simply economic necessity criminal neglect, or a grim combination of both. The bosses always said it was character building, but you're not sure what character comes from frostbite and spinal curvature before your first mustache hair. You pause just long enough to wipe your face with your sleeve again. This time, the smear stays. A permanent charcoal blush across your cheek. The sun, such as it is, finally emerges from the soup above. It doesn't warm you, but it casts just enough light to make the coal shimmer like volcanic glass. You squint. Beautiful, in a way, if you forget what it does to your lungs. A whistle blows. Not for you. Probably a factory shift change across town. But you all hear it. It's Pavlovian now. Ears perk, hearts hope, then fall when no one calls your name. You're not done. Not even close. You barely notice when your fingers start bleeding. It's not dramatic. No cinematic gush. No gasps of horror. Just a slow seep from the same cracked knuckles that split open last week and the week before that. You rub them against your trouser leg out of habit, smearing black with red until the two are indistinguishable. Coal work does that. It teaches you to ignore things that would send other people into hysterics, like pain, or the fact that your skin hasn't felt clean since last summer. Around you, the other coal sifters keep at it, a ballet of bending, squatting, and swearing under breath. No one's talking much. It's the sort of morning that just swallows words. Too cold, too loud, too tired. Your knees ache like they belong to someone much older. Maybe they do. Maybe you inherited them from some ghost miner still haunting the pit. Or maybe they're just 50-year-old joints in a 12-year-old frame. A common condition in the yard. Next to you, Nell finally speaks. Someone lit their lunch on fire again. She points with her chin toward the far end of the yard. Sure enough, a small column of smoke curls upward from a crate that definitely wasn't on fire 10 minutes ago. You don't even flinch. Last week, someone accidentally burned their sleeve clean off, trying to toast bread on a rusted metal grate. It's all part of the ambiance. You've worked here long enough to learn everyone's coping style. Some people mutter songs. Some people swear inventively at the coal. Others, like young Edwin, talk to the lumps. Hello, Governor, he says now, lifting a particularly pointy one. Back to the pile with you. You wonder if he knows he's doing it, or if the coal's talking back. Then there's Maisie. Maisie is indestructible. Maybe 15. Maybe immortal. She has arms like braided rope and a mouth that could skin a potato at 20 paces. Today she's yelling at a wagon for arriving late. Not the driver. The wagon. You love her a little for that. Every workplace has its characters. Even this one. And misery shared, as they say, becomes slightly less miserable. Or at least you get to laugh when someone accidentally sits in a puddle so cold their trousers freeze mid-shift. True story. Happened to Jasper. Took 2 lads to peel him off the ground. You've been on your knees for hours now. The coal cuts into you, sharp and unapologetic. Your fingers are raw, your breath is shallow, and your legs have gone from numb to twitchy. You risk a stretch, slow and secret, like a cat that doesn't want to be caught loafing. Overhead, gulls cry out from the rooftops. You wonder what they're doing here. What self-respecting bird hangs around a coal yard? Probably just judging you from above, or waiting to steal someone's bread crust. The 2 main industries in town are coal and disappointment, but the gulls are thriving. Then suddenly it happens. A crash. Wood splintering. Someone yells. Everyone looks. It's Thomas. He was lifting from the wrong end of the cart again. You all told him not to, but he's stubborn, and his pride weighs more than a coal sack. Now he's on the ground, one leg twisted at a very concerning angle, groaning like someone halfway between sleep and agony. The older sifters rush over. One of them vomits from the sight. You stand frozen, part fear, part habit. You've learned not to move too fast. People notice. Eventually, the foreman saunters over. He peers at Thomas, snorts, and says, "Someone get his cart moving. That coal's not going to shift itself." No offer of help. No medic. Not even a spare cloth. Thomas is carried, dragged, really, to a dry patch near the fence. Someone props his head up with a sack. The foreman tosses him a coat. You know what that means. If he doesn't stand by evening, he's out, replaced, forgotten. In the yard, nothing stops. Ever. Historians still debate how many workers, especially children, were injured or maimed in these yards during the peak of Britain's industrial boom. Records are spotty, accountability even spottier. Injuries were called accidents, as if the coal itself had tripped you. You go back to work. Quieter now. There's a tension in the air, like someone turned the volume down on hope. Maisie mutters, "That's the third this week." You nod. Fourth, if you count Edwin, getting stuck in the cart chute, didn't count. He enjoyed it. She deadpans. You almost smile. By now, your fingers have gone from bleeding to blistered. The coal gets warmer in your grip. Not because it is, just because your nerves are confused. Your palms sting with every toss. And then finally, the break bell. You don't rush to lunch. That implies energy. What you do is shuffle, like a parade of ghosts in filthy coats. Everyone slumps down on nearby crates, rocks, or the occasional sack. Someone passes a biscuit around. You're not sure how many hands it touched. You eat your bit anyway. Your lunch today is a miracle. Half a meat pie. Cold, slightly dented, and possibly older than you, but it's got flavor. Sort of. You savor every bite as if it were a royal feast. Nell has a bit of cheese she refuses to share. Maisie offers you a bite of her apple core. You decline. Some things are too intimate. In the distance, Thomas groans again. No one looks this time. You sip tea from a tin mug that leaks just enough to stain your thigh. Steam curls up and into your face. For one fleeting moment, you feel something like comfort. It doesn't last, but you remember it. You stare out at the coal piles, the smokestacks, the endless gray, and then the bell rings again. Back to work. You shuffle back to your post, belly barely full and body already stiffening. The break might have lasted 10 minutes, or 15, or 5. Time in the yard is a slippery thing. It doesn't tick. It groans. It drags. It mocks you. There are no clocks here. Just your back, your breath, and the bell. You return to your heap of coal, which, with cruel irony, looks exactly the same as before, as if it's grown while you were away, offended by your temporary abandonment. You sigh. Not loudly, just enough for your lungs to register the despair. And then you kneel again. Your knees crack like dry twigs. They do that now. You've tried folding bits of sackcloth beneath them, but it always slips or soaks through. So you make do. Always make do. That's the coal sifter's oath. Unofficial, unwritten, sacred. It could be worse. Beside you, young Edwin has returned from his self-appointed inspection of the biscuit barrel, which was really him trying to sneak a nap behind the supply cart. He's grinning like he got away with it. He did not. His ear is already red from where Maisie flicked him for slacking. You set back into motion. Scoop, shift, sort. The piles are uneven, the lumps are heavy, and some of them seem determined to stab you. A particular chunk hits your thumb, and you let out a sharp breath. No swearing, though, not allowed. You learned that lesson last winter when a passing foreman boxed your ears so hard you heard Christmas bells in February. It's hard to explain the texture of coal. It's not just black, it's every kind of black: glossy black, dusty black, jagged black, splintery black. It crumbles and cuts, sticks to sweat, clings to fabric, and somehow always finds your underwear no matter how tightly you tuck in your shirt. Your hands are turning into something else, not quite human anymore, more like tools. Blistered, cracked, permanently rimmed in soot, they've lost the ability to feel nuance. You can't tell if you're gripping a pebble or a nail until one of them draws blood. Jasper passes by and mutters, clogs on, back bent, soul gone. He says this a few times a day like it's a hymn. Maybe it is. Clogs, by the way, are what many of you wear. Wooden soled shoes with leather tops, though half the leather is usually missing. They're loud on the cobbles, slippery in the mud, and utterly useless in the snow. But they're better than nothing, which is, coincidentally, what many children in the yard do wear. One girl near the western pile is working barefoot today. No one asks why. Probably lost them to water rot, or rats. Or maybe she's got a brother with frostbite and gave them up. Generosity is currency here, second only to silence. A gust of wind kicks up, and the coal dust rises like a curtain. You squint, turn your head, wrap your scarf higher over your nose. The dust fills your eyes, your ears, your mouth. It's like swallowing a fireplace. You cough. Everyone coughs, always coughing. The medical men call it black phthisis, a charming phrase that essentially means your lungs have become little coal bins of their own. Historians still argue whether coal sifters or chimney sweeps had the worst lungs. As someone knee-deep in both soot and bias, you're happy to declare it a tie. You straighten for a second and arch your back until it pops like a kettle lid. Your shoulders crackle, your neck stiffens, and your entire spine feels like it's been replaced with rusty iron rods. You are 13 going on 70. Maisie, working beside you, says, "They should build statues of us." You raise an eyebrow. Out of what? She shrugs. Coal, probably. That way we'd crumble quick and save 'em the trouble of forgetting us slowly. You laugh. Not a loud one. Just a nasal exhale that somehow shifts the soot in your sinuses. The sky has darkened slightly. Not because it's evening, it's only midday, but because the smoke is winning again. Somewhere, a factory is belching joy into the sky. Somewhere else, a furnace screams. And here, in your little corner of the empire, the workers keep sifting. A boy nearby, new to the yard, yelps and drops his shovel. You glance over and see the telltale dark line on his palm. Blister popped. The older workers don't rush to help. Instead, Nell calls over, "Wrap it in your scarf or it'll crust up." He obeys, blinking fast, trying not to cry. No one mocks him. You've all done it. Sift long enough, and the body gives warnings. The trick is learning which ones to ignore. Someone hums a tune, low, melancholic, a pub song, maybe, or a hymn about Saint Cufalo, the unofficial patron saint of children who work too hard and dream too little. You pause briefly for water. Your flask is dented and warm. The liquid inside tastes faintly of tin and yesterday's stew, but it slides down your throat and reminds you that you're still functioning, still moving, still here. Work continues. The mustache arrives before the man does. You catch a glimpse of it from across the yard, a thin, glistening strip of facial architecture so precisely curled it looks like it was drafted by an engineer. It enters the scene like a villain in a penny novel, smug, symmetrical, and unbothered by the laws of gravity or empathy. Then the rest of him follows: Mr. Chisel, foreman, manager, coal whisperer. No one's sure what his actual title is. You've only ever heard him referred to as him or, on brave days, that mustachioed gargoyle, but never to his face, never while within boot thwacking range. He walks like he owns not just the yard, but also your lungs, your rations, and possibly your future offspring. His coat is wool, double breasted, barely smudged. His boots are polished, in a coal yard. That's either a miracle or the result of someone else's suffering. You try not to make eye contact as he stalks down the main line. The air around him tightens. Voices drop. Everyone suddenly remembers how to look extremely busy while doing very little. A girl near the cart stack feigns inspecting a wheel bolt like it contains secrets to eternal life. Chisel pauses, looks around, and smiles. The smile is worse than yelling. You're mid sift, head down, hands blackened, and you can feel him watching. He doesn't shout, doesn't need to. His silence is louder than thunder. Then, without warning, he speaks. Fine day, isn't it? No one answers. Is this a trick? A rhetorical question? Has he finally lost his mind? He continues strolling, eyes sharp as fence nails. Plenty of coal today. Let's hope it's sorted with more enthusiasm than yesterday's mess. You don't breathe. He stops near young Edwin and picks up a chunk of coal the boy just dropped. He holds it up, inspecting it like a jeweler. Look at this, he says to no one and everyone. Is this premium lump sorting? Is this pride and labor? He doesn't wait for an answer. He just tosses the lump back onto the pile like it personally offended him. The sound it makes, clink, crumble, silence, echoes louder than any speech. Then, just as quickly, he's gone, off to torment another row. His mustache exits half a second after the rest of him, like a villain's cape fluttering in slow motion. You exhale. Edwin mutters, he smells like lavender and evil. You nod. Mostly evil. Maisie chuckles. Saw him eat a meat pie once without blinking. Sociopath. Jokes resume. Quiet ones. Careful ones. Like nervous laughter after a thunderclap. But the tension doesn't lift completely. Not for a while. Mr. Chisel leaves a lingering effect, like the taste of bad vinegar. You find yourself checking your posture, shoveling a little faster, wincing when your stack tilts slightly to the left. Historians still argue whether figures like Chisel believed they were doing noble work, bringing order to chaos, or whether they simply enjoyed controlling people who couldn't fight back. In fairness, Chisel seems to genuinely adore coal. He once gave a speech on the purity of perfect lumps that made 3 people faint from boredom and heat stroke. You catch a glimpse of him at his office door. He's talking to someone from the management side. Suits and brass buttons. The kind of man who says production yield and margin compliance without irony. You know the type. He probably thinks coal just appears in crates, gift wrapped, and curse free. Their laughter carries across the yard. Back at your station, your back is screaming again. You lean into the pain like it's an old friend. It doesn't leave, but it does settle into the usual dull throb. That means it's manageable. For now. Someone nearby drops a shovel. The noise startles a crow, which flaps off the roof, squawking in protest. You glance up just in time to see the soot swirling in slow spirals, like smoke deciding whether to stay or leave. You wish you had the same option. There's talk lately, whispers really, of workers organizing, forming unions. The idea is still more dream than plan, and dreams don't last long in the yard. Chisel hates unions. Once shouted down, a boy for saying the word unity during lunch. Claimed it was communist nonsense. The boy had been describing his favorite hymn, but the seed's there. You've seen Maisie talking quietly with the weavers from the mill. You've seen Nell exchanging scraps of paper with boys from the ironworks. You don't know what's on them, but they don't look like recipes. Still, for now, the yard remains unchanged. Same piles, same coughs, same faces, and the same mustache, glinting like a sinister crescent moon on the office steps. You find yourself watching Chisel sometimes, studying how he walks, how he talks, how he gets people to obey with just a tilt of his head. It's not admiration, it's curiosity, like observing a particularly charismatic wolf. Would you do the same if you were in charge? It's a strange thought. You shake it off, back to work. You dig your fingers into the coal pile, pull up a jagged lump, and toss it onto the heap with more force than necessary. It shatters slightly, not enough to get scolded, just enough to feel like you push back. Tiny victories. The yard moves on. Lunch break is a strong word. It suggests sitting down. It implies warmth. Perhaps even the luxury of chewing slowly and hearing yourself think. What you get instead is 10 minutes on an overturned crate that smells like something died on it twice, and a hunk of bread you could use to bludgeon a small animal. There's no cutlery, no plates, no napkins, just fingers and teeth, and the occasional shared cup of mystery tea passed hand to hand like sacred relics. And yet, somehow, it's still the best part of your day. You sit beside Nell and Edwin, boots toe to toe in the slush. Maisie's perched on a stone block that may or may not be part of a collapsed chimney. Everyone eats quietly at first. There's a kind of reverence to it, like no one wants to remind each other that this is all they'll have until dusk. Your bread is tougher than coal. No butter, of course. The concept of spread is as foreign as vacations or second boots. Still, you gnaw on it. The chewing warms your jaw, gives you something to do, besides noticing how bad your back hurts. Nell offers a swig of her tea, and you nod gratefully. It tastes faintly of metal, stronger of ash, and leaves behind a trace of something floral that might have once been lemon, or maybe soap. Either way, it scalds nicely. To your left, Edwin stares at the sky. It's the same as always, gray, thick, mildly judgmental. He sighs. I dreamed of meat last night. You glance over. What kind? Didn't say, just meat. It spoke to me. Said its name was Charles. Maisie snorts and nearly drops her potato scrap. I dreamt of a fire that didn't smell like sin. Nell mutters, poking at a lump of cheese with a twig she's been using as a utensil since Tuesday. You dream of a bed without mold. No hay, no fleas, no crooked boards digging into your ribs. Just clean linen and silence. Maybe someone brushing your hair. Maybe a bath. Too much dreaming, Maisie says, makes the shift seem longer. She's not wrong. Lunch is over far too soon. The bell rings, sharp, urgent, cruel. You groan inwardly and push off your crate. Your legs don't want to cooperate, but there's no choice. You stretch as you stand, spine crackling like firewood, knees protesting loudly enough to earn a few sympathetic looks. Back to the yard. The piles have grown again. You suspect they breed when no one's looking. The new delivery is wetter, which means heavier, messier, slipperier. Fantastic. You resume the rhythm. Kneel, sort, shift. The heat in your muscles fades into cold. Your breath comes out in white wisps that disappear too quickly. Maisie works beside you. She's faster than most, but her face is pale today. She winces when she lifts. You see her clutch her side when she thinks no one's looking. You all right? You whisper. She grunts. Stomach's playing marbles again. You nod, and you both keep working. Because what else can you do? Lunch break didn't fix anything. It never does. It just hits pause on the misery long enough for you to remember you're hungry, then drops you back in the coal like nothing happened. Behind you, someone sneezes. It echoes across the yard like a cannon. A dog barks in response from beyond the fence. You think it might be the same mangy hound that chased Percy the rat across the sorting pile last week. Neither dog nor rat has been the same since. You hear the familiar thunk of someone dropping a shovel. You don't turn around, not because you don't care, because you've learned that if they scream, you go. If they don't, you keep sorting. That's how it works. Historians still debate whether these midday breaks existed in any formal capacity, or if they were just tolerated pockets of mercy. Some yards had bells, others relied on sun position or boss mood. You're lucky to have the bell, even if it does sound like an angry goose being strangled. A kid across from you is nibbling his lunch mid shift. You raise an eyebrow. Dangerous move. Mr. Chisel might swoop in and deliver one of his sermons about idle hands and corrupted morals. But the kid eats quickly, hiding behind a coal stack. Looks like jam. Lucky. The afternoon light, such as it is beginning to tilt. Shadows grow longer. The piles never shrink. Your hands go back to autopilot. Sift, toss, cough, blink. And somewhere, just beneath it all, your stomach growls. Not because you're still hungry, though you are, but because your body knows something your brain doesn't want to admit. You have hours left. And your bread brick lunch already feels like yesterday. Maisie suddenly mutters, I'd trade my socks for stew. Nell glances up. Which pair? Maisie smirks. Exactly. You laugh, it comes out dry, coal dusted. 10 more shovelfuls. 20. 30. You count not to measure progress, but to pretend the numbers mean something. They don't. You hear the cough before you see the kid. It's not the polite, throat-clearing type you might hear in a schoolroom or church pew. This is the wet, rattling, gut-deep cough that sounds like it's trying to excavate a lung. And honestly, it might succeed. You turn your head just in time to see a boy, 8, maybe 9, hunched over a coal sack, his face red from the effort. Each breath seems like a negotiation, each wheeze a betrayal. His name is Alfie. He started last week, and he already looks like he's aged a year. His boots are 2 sizes too big and stuffed with newspaper, which squelches when he moves. His scarf is someone's old curtain. You remember being Alfie. Small, eager, optimistic. That lasts about 2 shifts. A whistle from a foreman signals more coal incoming, so you look away. Because Alfie's not going to get special treatment. Not here. And watching him suffer won't help either of you finish faster. The kids in the yard work the same jobs you do. Smaller loads, sure, but with hands just as raw, knees just as bruised, eyes just as tired. Most are orphans. Some have parents so busy working their own 14-hour shifts, they barely know their children are here. And the rest? Well, they're just trying to help buy bread. Children are prized workers in the coal yards. Small hands fit into narrow sorting bins. Light frames are better suited to crawling under carts and machinery. And they don't talk back much. At least, not until they're too broken to care. Historians still argue whether Victorian society genuinely believed it was building character through child labor, or whether they simply didn't want to pay adults what they were worth. Either way, the coal industry was a hungry monster, And children like Alfie were the tastiest morsels. He stumbles again, and you hear Nell sigh. Someone tell him not to eat the dust, she mutters. Maisie, without pausing her sorting, calls out, Alfie, love, breathe through the rag, not your mouth. The boy looks up, confused, smudged entirely in soot, and nods. He presses his curtain scarf higher over his nose. His cough doesn't stop, but it quiets. For now. You've seen kids pass out from the fumes before. The coal dust gets into everything: lungs, sinuses, dreams. There's no escaping it. You blow your nose sometimes, and what comes out could be used to draw on a chalkboard. Your own lungs don't feel much better. That familiar burn sits in your chest like a squat landlord, always there, always charging rent. You've lost count of how many nights you've woken up coughing so hard your ribs hurt, and still you work. Because what else would you do? Play marbles? Even Percy the rat doesn't bother the kids much. He gives them a wide berth, as if even a creature like him understands that a child with soot in his eyelashes is off limits. Percy has ethics, apparently. The youngest worker in the yard is called Dot. She's 6, possibly 5. No one knows for sure because she's never spoken more than 5 words in a row. Dot sorts coal into baskets with eerie precision, her tiny hands moving like she's conducting an orchestra. You've never seen her cry or blink. She sits on a crate all day, a crate that smells like tar and mildew and old potato. You offered her your mittens once when the frost was thick, and she stared at you like you'd spoken in Latin. Then she pulled her sleeves down further and kept working. Dot's tougher than Jasper, Maisie says one day, half joking. Dot is Jasper, Nell replies, just smaller and slightly less furry. You chuckle, because if you don't laugh, you might scream. Later in the day, a small skirmish breaks out near the northern piles. 2 boys scuffle over a crust. Not a loaf. Not even a proper slice. A crust. It's over in seconds. One boy trips, the other runs off with the prize, and everyone returns to work like nothing happened. You help the boy up. His lip is bleeding. He's maybe 10. Worth it, you ask? He shrugs. It had raisins. Fair enough. You return to your stack and keep sifting. Coal chunks clatter into the bins. Your muscles ache in that dull, always there way. Your wrists feel loose, like they've forgotten how joints are supposed to work. At one point, a child's laugh rings out, clear, bright, totally inappropriate. Everyone stops. It's Alfie. He's found a piece of coal shaped like a shoe. He holds it up like a prize, beaming. I've got a left boot, he shouts. Maisie raises her arms in mock celebration. Only 7 more, and we'll have a parade. You grin despite yourself. These are the moments that keep you going. Tiny absurd victories. Coal boots and crumb fights. The fact that somehow, the kids still find ways to joke, but not always. By dusk, Dot has started to wobble. Her head dips. Her hands slow. You nudge her shoulder gently as you pass by. She doesn't look at you, just blinks slowly, twice, and keeps working. You exhale. Later, when the carts are empty and the sky turns that sickly purple-gray of Victorian twilight, the children begin drifting toward the yard's edge. Some will walk home. Others will sleep behind crates. A few are waiting for older siblings to fetch them. Most will return tomorrow. If they're still breathing, you watch Alfie cough one last time as he waves goodnight. You wave back. The women work beside you, not behind you. Not in some separate part of the yard designated for dainty hands and proper posture. No, right here, elbow to elbow, knee deep in soot, arm deep in coal, just as sore, just as cold, just as ignored. Their skirts are hitched up, pinned, or tucked so high that modesty has long since been sacrificed to survival. Their corsets, yes, corsets, dig into their ribs as they bend and haul, stays creaking, breath short, layers soaked in sweat and ash. It's fashion for the desperate. Victorian elegance, but make it coal stained. One woman, Mary, sorts coal with the precision of a surgeon and the deadpan expression of someone who once fought off a rat using only a spoon and sheer disdain. She's in her 30s, maybe, or 20s. It's hard to tell. This work adds decades to your face and takes inches from your height. She doesn't talk much, but when she does, it's usually something like, if this lump hits me in the shin again, I'm turning it into soup. And then she does. Not soup exactly, but she pulverizes it with her shovel in such a way that it feels deeply personal. There's Lizzie too, barefoot, freckled, and so thin she looks like a sketch. She hums lullabies while she works, not to herself, but to the coal, as if the lumps might behave better if sung to sweetly. One of them once bit her finger, and she kissed it like a baby and whispered, "Naughty little goblin." You've respected her ever since. And Maggie, big shouldered, braid like a rope, hands like shovels. She's your favorite. Once, when a boy made a joke about her broad arms, she lifted a crate over her head and asked, "Like this, you mean?" He never joked again. You'd think Victorian men would protest the presence of women in such brutal work, and some do, but most of the bosses have discovered a universal truth. Women don't complain as loudly, and they keep the line moving. So, they're tolerated. Paid less, naturally, but tolerated. Historians still argue whether female labor in coal yards was seen as liberation or exploitation. From where you're standing, beside Maggie, sweat mixing with soot as you both lift another load, it feels more like survival. Dignity through grit. Independence forged in hardship. What no one tells you is that these women often work a double shift. After 12 hours of sorting and lifting, they go home to wash clothes, boil cabbage, mop floors, raise children, and, if there's time, collapse silently into sleep. Their hands are never idle. Their backs are never upright. You once asked Mary if she ever rested. She looked at you, straight-faced, and said, "I'll rest in the coffin, dear. Might even get a lid." At one point, Lizzie stops and wipes her forehead with her sleeve. Her skin is so pale under the soot it almost glows. She lets out a sigh so theatrical you half expect applause. "I used to work in a laundry," she says. You blink. "Was it easier?" She stares into the distance. "At least the water was warm." You both laugh. It's a brittle sound, like a spoon tapping cracked china. Corsets are a particular torment. They're not made for manual labor. They're made for sitting quietly and pretending not to exist. But many women still wear them, either because they're hand-me-downs or because the boss says it looks proper. Proper, of course, meaning not upsetting to the delicate sensibilities of people who've never touched coal. You've seen Maggie loosen hers once, behind a stack of crates. She exhaled like she'd just been released from prison, then tightened it again and marched back to work. The air between you all is thick with respect. Not the cheerful handshake kind, the quiet, shared kind. You don't talk about your bodies breaking. You just notice how others hold their shoulders, how they wince, how their breathing changes. Then you shift the heavier load their way or cover their row when they cough. No one says thank you. It's understood. Someone tries to flirt once. A newcomer, fresh from the textile mill. He saunters over, makes a joke about soot and roses. Maggie hands him a shovel and says, "If you can match my stack by sundown, I'll consider not throwing coal at your head. He never tries again. You keep sorting. The women keep sorting. The piles never end. Occasionally, the boss walks by and compliments the ladies. He says it like he's visiting a zoo enclosure. One time, Chisel brought a guest to tour the yard, a man with polished shoes and a notebook. He pointed at Lizzie and said, "Fine example of domestic strength." Lizzie gave a curtsy so sarcastic it nearly burned a hole through the floor. The guest scribbled something and walked away. Later that evening, Mary muttered, "Hope he writes his obituary." The cold sets in again as the sun disappears behind the smoke. You watch Maggie rub her arms. She's chattering slightly. The sweat under her corset has turned icy. Lizzie coughs. Mary flexes her fingers. It's been a long day, but they're still here. Hair matted, skirts heavy with grime, fingers raw. Still here. You've noticed the quiet shift that happens when the sky goes from gloomy to industrial twilight. That gray purple hue that doesn't quite promise rest, but definitely signals more trouble. It's when the shadows stretch just enough to trip over, and the cold starts biting with teeth instead of nibbles. This is when things get weird. Strange jobs appear in the yard during these hours, the kind no one talks about. They come with whispered instructions, half promises of extra pay, and an unspoken rule: don't ask questions. You're handed a metal pail and told to take it round back, keep your mouth shut, and mind the rats. Classic. The pail is leaking slightly and smells like old oil, boiled cabbage, and maybe something recently deceased. You don't ask. You don't want to know. You just take it behind the sorting crates, past Percy the Rat's neighborhood. He nods at you, probably, and into the corner where even the overseers rarely go. Here, behind the stacks, is where the unofficial operations happen. Coal dust dumped too fine for sale, broken tools stashed until repair, and yes, slop disposal. The Victorian yard is its own ecosystem. Some of these jobs are real. Some are invented to punish slackers. You hope this one at least counts toward your wage. There's a boy back here already. Billy. He's maybe your age, maybe a year younger, with a permanent squint and a suspicious amount of soot behind just one ear. You once heard he sleeps behind the boiler in the foundry because it's warm and no one checks there at night. "Slop run?" he asks without turning around. You nod. He points to the corner. "Bucket goes in the pit. Watch your step. Someone lost a boot down there last week. Never came back up." You thank him, because politeness costs nothing, unlike boots, and tip your pail into the pit. A squelch follows, then a gurgle, then silence. Done. But you linger. There's something strange about the yard after dark. Not scary exactly, just sideways. Like the air has changed rules and no one told you. You hear strange clicks and creaks even when no one's walking. You swear the shadows are thicker. The coal piles seem taller. And the rats, bolder. This is also the time when the more questionable trades take place. Off-shift workers sell matches, nails, and imported tea from their coat linings. Someone once sold a pork pie that turned out to be filled with turnip and lies. There's a girl, Annie, who whispers fortunes for a penny and a bit of coal. She stares into the dust, tells you when it'll rain, when someone might lose a toe, when the boss is about to fire someone. She's been right 4 times out of 6. That's a better record than most. Tonight, she catches your eye. "Your hands are getting worse," she says, pointing with a chin tilt. You glance down. She's right. The skin's cracked deeper than before. A few knuckles are swollen. One finger doesn't bend properly. "Won't be long before the cold makes 'em lock up," she adds. "Cheers," you mutter. She shrugs. It's not a curse if it's true. There's comfort in her bluntness. Like a sharp wind that at least clears the smoke. You head back toward the sorting piles, past the unofficial kitchen, a crate someone flipped over and scorched into a makeshift stove, bits of turnip soup steam in tin cans. One can has a shoe soaking in it. No one asks. Nell is there, stirring something that smells like onions and decisions made in desperation. "I got any salt?" she asks. You pat your coat, pull out a tiny twist of paper with maybe 3 grains inside. A treasure. She nods in reverence and sprinkles them in. The gesture feels holy. You warm your hands near the crate fire. It radiates just enough heat to remind you of everything you're missing. A real hearth, hot food, dry socks, and silence. Maisie appears, dragging a sack nearly her size. She drops it with a grunt. "That's the last of the heap," she says. "Unless the heap reproduces, which it might. I think I saw it move." She flops down beside the fire. Edwin's already there, picking coal dust from his sleeves, like he's prepping for a ball. "We should charge admission," he says. "Best seat in the empire." "To what?" you ask. "To watching ourselves rot in real time." He gets a laugh for that. Not a big one, just enough. The conversation turns, as it often does in the evenings, to escape fantasies. Nell says she'll become a singer. "Got lungs like a bellows," she insists, thumping her chest. "And if I scream high enough, maybe the soot'll fall out." Maisie wants to go to the seaside. "I'll lie in the sand until someone mistakes me for a drowned duchess and sends for smelling salts." Billy says nothing, just stares at the sky. "You say you'll write books, not about coal, about everything but coal." They nod. No one mocks you. Not tonight. Historians still wonder how coal workers coped, emotionally, mentally, with the daily grind. Some turned to drink, some to church, others, like you and your friends, to imagination. Little moments of rebellion tucked inside big piles of misery. A final whistle blows in the distance. Not for you. You've got at least an hour left. But the sound carries hope anyway. You tuck your scarf tighter, stretch your hands, and head back into the haze. One more hour. Just one more. You lose track of time, not in the romantic, dreamy way they describe in novels. There's no enchanted fog, no flutter in your chest, just the slow, mechanical erosion of your senses, like someone is sanding down the hours one breath at a time. The piles haven't changed. Or maybe they have. You've stopped looking at them as objects. They're just tasks. A blur of black and dust, and the rhythmic ache in your arms. Your eyes sting. Your breath whistles slightly. You blink. And it feels like waking from a nap you didn't mean to take, except you're still working. The cold isn't the same cold from the morning. It's deeper now, hungrier. It moves into your bones like a squatter who brought furniture and refuses to leave. Your fingers are stiff, and you've bitten your lower lip 3 times by accident. Each time draws just a little blood. Maisie's beside you again. She's quieter now. Less sarcasm, more squinting. You can tell her ribs hurt. She moves with the stiffness of someone hiding something. Maybe she pulled something earlier. Maybe it's just too many nights on cold floors. You want to ask, but she gives you a look that says don't, so you don't. Instead, you shift closer, so she doesn't have to reach as far. That's how care works around here. Not through words, through adjustments. The bosses call this part of the day final push. They say it like it's the end of a race. Like there's a finish line and cheering crowds waiting with soup and socks. Really, it just means that if you slow down now, you might not be invited back tomorrow. You keep working. The lamps flicker on overhead, dim oil burners dangling from crooked hooks nailed into posts. Their glow is weak and yellow, casting long shadows across the yard. You squint. Everyone squints. It's like working under candlelight in a dungeon, except the candle smells like kerosene and depression. Jasper strolls by with a crooked lantern and announces, "Two more carts incoming." A few people groan, quietly. Someone drops to their knees and just stays there for a while. Nobody bothers them. We've all done it. There's a cart loaded high with coal that looks fresher than usual, which sounds good until you realize that fresh means it was dug recently and hasn't cooled. The lumps are warm to the touch. Steam curls off them like breath from a giant. You dig in. The heat is strange, not comforting, angry. The coal hisses when it meets the cold air, like it resents being disturbed. You nearly drop a piece that burns your palm through your mitten. You don't even get mad. You just switch hands and keep moving. There's something almost hallucinatory about this part of the shift. People start to talk to themselves more openly. You catch Edwin reciting the alphabet backward. Lizzie is naming coal chunks after royalty again. This one's Queen Victoria. All jagged edges and superiority. She tosses it. It lands with a satisfying thunk. You nod in approval. That one looked like Prince Albert. Bit useless. She cackles. Somewhere down the yard, someone starts humming God Save the Queen, but it quickly morphs into God Save My Spine, which gets picked up by two more voices. It becomes a sort of coal sifter's anthem. Off key, off rhythm, but oddly moving. You're halfway through the last pile when your wrist cramps, sharp, sudden, like a snapped wire. You stop, shake it out. It doesn't help. You flex your fingers, slowly, like they might detach. Maisie sees you wince. Switch hands. You nod. She hands you a smaller shovel, one of the kids' ones. You don't argue. Historians still discuss whether workers adapted physiologically to these conditions. If, over time, the human body became tougher, more soot resistant, more pain tolerant. Standing here, with your back shaped like a question mark and your lungs filled with powdered misery, you have your doubts. You glance toward the office. Chisel's light is still on. You imagine him sitting by the fire, feet up, perhaps sipping something warm. Maybe he's writing a report on worker morale based on how upright your piles are. You hope his ink freezes mid-sentence. Your own breath hangs in front of you in little ghost puffs. You think of your bed. It's more idea than object. 3 boards nailed together, a blanket stiff with use, and straw that smells like damp shoes. But it's yours. Sort of. You share it with your cousin when he's not on night shift. You never talk. You just pass each other like ghosts clocking in and out of a shared haunting. The final cart finally empties. You don't cheer. You just slow. The shovels fall silent one by one. Hands drop. Bodies slump. There's no bell for the end of the day. Just a collective sigh that rolls across the yard like a fog. You sit on the nearest crate and close your eyes. You don't sleep. You don't even rest. You just pause. And in that pause, you feel every bruise, every cut, every tired cell vibrating from the inside out. Maisie sits beside you. Nell appears with a piece of stale pie. She breaks it in half, gives you the bigger bit. No one speaks for a full minute. Then, from the shadows, a rat squeak. Possibly Percy. You all nod. Even the rats need closure. There's something eerie about walking home after a shift. It's not the silence. There's plenty of noise. Carts rattle, chimneys groan, dogs bark, with unresolved issues. It's the absence of your own noise. Your boots move, but you don't feel them. Your arms swing slightly, but it's like they belong to someone else. You're a passenger in your own bones. You don't walk so much as drift. Through alleys that smell of rotted hay and pipe smoke, past laundry frozen stiff on lines like surrendered flags, past windows flickering with oil light, behind which entire other lives are being lived, lives that don't smell like coal or taste like dust. Somewhere, someone is playing a fiddle, badly, but it's music, and it feels like a message. You're not the only one still breathing. Maisie walks beside you. Her braid is coming loose, and her sleeve is torn. She's eating something that might be bread or a regrettable experiment. She offers you a bite. You decline. She shrugs. You pass the bakery. It's closed, but the smell lingers. Yeast and crust and dreams you can't afford. You breathe it in like someone stealing warmth through a locked window. Home is a long walk, and by home, you mean the room. It's up 2 flights of uneven stairs, behind a door that creaks like it's considering retirement. The handle sticks. The air smells of boiled socks and yesterday's arguments. But it has a bed. Technically, you collapse onto it without removing your boots. Why bother? They're part of you now, like regrets or splinters. Your cousin's coat is still here, which means he hasn't returned from the brickyard yet. Or maybe he's decided to sleep in the kiln again. Either way, you have the bed to yourself. Luxury. You peel off your scarf and try to wipe your face. The cloth is so dirty it just relocates the grime. You stare at the ceiling. It stares back. There's no lamp. Just moonlight creeping through the boards like a nervous intruder. You hear a baby crying 2 doors down. Then silence. Then more crying. Then silence again. You hope someone fed it. You also hope it quiets before your brain leaks out your ears. Your muscles twitch without permission. Little spasms like your body is arguing with itself. One hand curls into a fist while the other scratches an itch that isn't there. It's not pain. It's something deeper. Like your bones are humming in a key you can't name. You think about food. You always think about food. Not just hunger, though that's a given, but the memory of it. The texture of gravy. The way butter melts. The smell of roasted something from a holiday you barely remember. Once, when you were 5, someone gave you a hot apple. You didn't eat it. You just held it. Warmth was the rarest part. Maisie once described a pudding she saw in a shop window. She spent 20 minutes explaining it in such detail. You felt full by the end. That's the closest you've been to dessert in years. You stare at the ceiling. It leaks. Not with water, with dreams. Small ones drip down into your brain and whisper things like, what if you got out? And what if there's more? Then they vanish as quickly as they came. Some people make plans, big ones. Escape the yard, join the Navy, work on the railways, go to America. You think about writing, scribbling stories with smudged fingers and half a pencil. You've tried, but it's hard when the paper is also your blanket. You roll over and press your face to the wall. It's cold and smells like everyone who's ever lived here. You inhale deeply. You regret it. Outside, the streets are quieting. Smoke still billows from chimneys. The city never stops working, even when the people do. Somewhere, a clock tower chimes, offbeat and solemn. Maybe it's 9 p.m. Maybe it's 3 a.m. Time is a rumor. Historians still debate what life was like for the working poor after the shift. Diaries are rare. Letters are sparse. Most people didn't write. They survived. Existence wasn't documented. It was endured. You shift your weight, and the bed creaks like an insult. You remember Thomas, who slipped by the cart. Is he home? Did someone check on him? You make a mental note to ask in the morning. You'll probably forget. You remember Alfie still coughing, and Dot, with her expressionless precision, and the coal shaped like a boot, and the rat. You wonder where they are now. Then, you wonder where you are. Not physically, but in the grand scheme of things. Just a speck, a smudge on the Empire's shoe. And yet, still here, still sifting, still dreaming, you drift off, not to sleep, but to that in between state where your eyes are closed, your thoughts are loose, and the sound of your own breath becomes the only lullaby you get. Outside, the wind picks up. Inside, you fade. You wake up coughing. Not the kind that clears your throat, but the deep, dragging cough that wakes up your ribs, too. It rattles your chest, stings your eyes, and announces the start of another glorious Victorian morning. Your throat feels like it's been sandpapered. Your mouth tastes like old nails. You sit up slowly, the way a rusted hinge opens. Every joint clicks in protest. Your cousin is back. You didn't hear him come in, but there he is, sprawled on the floor, one boot on, one off, face half in a bucket that may or may not have been the toilet last night. He groans softly. You nod. That's his version of good morning. The air in the room is cold enough to chew. You tug your scarf over your nose, which does nothing, but it's a habit now. Comfort in repetition. You pull your boots on. They're still damp. You sigh and accept it. Downstairs, the landlord is yelling at someone. Something about back rent and rats aren't pets. The usual. You skip breakfast. There is no breakfast. You head out. The streets are already bustling. Carts creaking, chimney sweeps darting between alleys like soot-covered ghosts, and newsboys shouting headlines like they're auditioning for the opera. Queen opens railway. Factory fire in Leeds. Bread prices up again. Maisie meets you at the corner. She's chewing on something that might be licorice, or a small piece of rope. You hear about Lizzie? She asks by way of hello. You shake your head. I didn't show yesterday, or today. No one's seen her. You blink. That's not normal. She all right? Maisie shrugs. Might have gotten out. Or maybe sick. Or maybe she finally joined the circus like she always said. You nod slowly. The circus seems unlikely, but still, you hope. At the yard, the piles wait for you like eager suitors. Except instead of roses, they offer tetanus and joint damage. You sigh and get to work. It's colder than yesterday. Your fingers go numb quicker. You drop the same lump 3 times before your grip returns. Nell arrives late. She's limping. What happened? You ask. Stove fell on me. You blink. She shrugs. Well, not the whole stove, just the hot bit. You offer her the flatter shovel, easier on the arms. She nods, says nothing. That's how you say thank you here, through tools and silence. The day grinds forward. Your arms ache, your legs twitch. Your spine feels like it's been replaced with kindling. The cold gets into your gums. You blink slower. The world smudges at the edges. Then something different happens. A visitor. That never happens. Not here. A carriage arrives. Not a cart. A proper carriage. Polished wood. Crested door. Absurdly shiny wheels. 2 horses so clean they look like illustrations. Everyone stops. Even the foreman blinks. From the carriage steps, a woman in a dress so wide it might need planning permission. She's wrapped in furs. Her gloves are white. Her hat is indescribable. You've never seen anything like it. She walks like she's never touched mud. Next to her is a man with a clipboard and an expression like someone just insulted his cravat. They're from the charity board. You know this because Maisie hisses, "Watch out, it's the philanthropists." Philanthropists come by twice a year to witness conditions, to gather insight, to spread goodwill. They rarely spread anything but judgment and the occasional lukewarm biscuit. The woman surveys the yard like she's scanning a zoo enclosure. She turns to the clipboard man and says, "It's quite bleak." He nods. "Authentic." They speak to Mr. Chisel. He's putting on his special polite face. It looks like indigestion. You watch from behind a crate. The lady approaches Dot, who's sorting coal with her usual quiet efficiency. The woman bends down and smiles in that way people do when they're about to condescend. "And what's your name, darling?" Dot doesn't answer. The woman blinks. "Do you like working here?" Dot blinks back. You hold your breath. Then Dot, without pausing her sorting, says, "It's warmer than the street." The woman straightens, visibly shaken. Clipboard man scribbles something. The two philanthropists leave shortly after, clambering back into their fancy coach. Mr. Chisel wipes his forehead like he just survived a duel. And the rest of you? You go back to work. Historians still debate the impact of 19th century philanthropy. Some say it sparked reform. Others argue it softened public outrage without fixing much. You're just impressed. Anyone managed to keep their gloves clean. You finish the shift with a new blister and half a nail missing. Victory. Outside, Maisie mutters, "I give that hat 2 days in the yard." You grin. "Half a day. The rats would make off with it." She grins back. The coal piles fade into darkness. The stars are out. You wonder if Lizzie ever got to see them from somewhere better. You hope so. The next morning smells like regret and cold cabbage. You wake with one eye crusted shut and the other reluctant to open. Your arms are noodles, very sore, very sad noodles. You sit up slowly, joints crackling like someone snapping kindling in slow motion. Outside, the air is damp. Not the romantic kind of mist that poets write about. No, this is the kind of damp that sneaks into your bones, makes your clothes feel 3 pounds heavier, and smells vaguely like someone's forgotten laundry and bad decisions. Your boots are still wet. You put them on anyway. By the time you reach the yard, the sky is already sulking, gray again. Always gray. Maisie is already there, crouched beside the sorting bin, poking a lump of coal with her shovel, like she suspects it might bite. "Mornin'," she says, yawning. "Any sign of Lizzie?" Maisie shakes her head. "Vanished. Like a tax on the rich." You sigh. Nell shows up a few minutes later, wearing one glove and a potato sack fashioned into a shawl. You say nothing. You've seen worse. Percy the rat once wore a ribbon for a full week, possibly a bet. Work starts, and almost immediately something strange happens. The machines stop. The gears that usually groan and squeal like Victorian banshees go quiet. You freeze, shovel midair. Everyone else does too. The silence is deafening. It's like the city itself has inhaled. Then, voices, angry ones, men shouting, boots stomping, a clang, a bang, a cheer. You glance at Maisie. "Strike?" you ask. She shrugs. "Could be. Or someone finally snapped and punched Chisel in the neck." You secretly hope for both. You edge closer to the fence and peek around the sorting bins. The foundry workers are gathered in the alley, shouting at a red-faced overseer. One of them is waving a pickaxe. Another is holding a loaf of bread like it's a weapon. The mood is enthusiastic. Back in the yard, Jasper says, "It's happening. The walkouts." "The what?" "The mill boys started it. Now the foundry lads are in. Maybe we're next." You stare at him. "You mean not work?" He nods. "A proper strike. It feels like someone's dropped a hot coal in your stomach. A strike." The word hangs in the air like a spell. Historians still argue about when exactly the labor movement began to bite back. but you can feel it now, not as theory, but as crackling tension under your fingernails. A whisper running through the yard, louder than a shout. Maisie lowers her shovel. Nell stops sorting. Even Dot looks up. The whisper becomes talk. Talk becomes buzz. Buzz becomes decision. Then someone throws a shovel. Not hard, not angrily, just done. And it begins. You drop yours next. The sound it makes when it hits the coal is the loudest thing you've ever heard. Then Maggie. Then Percy the rat. Unintentionally, but symbolically. Then the rest. You step out from behind the pile and walk slowly, deliberately, towards the main gate. Chisel is there. He's fuming. His mustache twitches like it's trying to file a complaint. You walk out now, he growls, and you won't come back. Maisie stops beside you. Good. We're not fans of return visits. He sneers. You think you'll survive a week without this job? Nell grins. We barely survive with it. More shovels fall behind you. The gate opens, and you walk out, onto the street, into the unknown. The sky hasn't changed. Still gray, still sulking. But something's different. It's not lighter. You are. The street fills with others like you. Workers from the mill, the brickyard, the bakery. They walk with the same stiff backs and soot-lined faces. But now there's something else behind their eyes. A flicker. Not quite hope, but close. A draft of possibility. You pass the same bakery, and this time the owner hands you a roll. Free. You blink at him. He shrugs. Can't eat your pride. Might as well share the crumbs. Maisie breaks it in half and gives you the bigger piece. You eat slowly. It tastes like defiance and cinnamon. Back at the yard, the coal sits unsorted. It'll wait. For once, you won't. It's strange, this thing called not working. You wake up the next morning and don't put your boots on. That's the first sign that something's off. Your feet twitch with confusion. Your arms wait for the familiar tug of the coal sack. But there's nothing. Just quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The awkward kind. The kind that hovers in corners and makes you feel like you've forgotten something important. Like a child. Or fire. You sit on the edge of the bed. Your cousin is still out cold, drooling into a sock. You leave him be. Outside, the streets aren't silent. They're humming. Movement everywhere. Groups gathering at corners. Raised voices. Folded arms. Coal workers, mill workers, smiths, bakers. Even a few chimney sweeps who look like they fell down their own flues and decided to strike on principle. Maisie meets you by the lamppost. She's wearing a new ribbon in her hair. Nice, you say. Found it in a gutter, she replies. You nod. All the best things are. She links arms with you. Shall we cause mild inconvenience to industrialists? Let's. The crowd is bigger today. It spills down the street like molasses, slow, thick, and impossible to ignore. Someone holds a sign. It says, "We are tired." That's it. No demands, no slogans, just tired. It feels honest. You join the flow. It leads to the square. That's where it happens. The speeches, not the rousing kind. These are awkward, half-mumbled, half-shouted attempts at rallying. A man named Reggie, who usually sells spoons, reads from a paper. We, the undersigned, do hereby protest the conditions of labor in the yards of soot and the factories of wheeze. He loses the thread halfway through and starts improvising. And the bosses, who never lift a finger but do seem fond of pointing. That gets a cheer. Then Maggie steps forward. No paper, no speech, just her. She raises a shovel over her head. This was my mother's, she says. She worked herself to the bone for 4 shillings a week. She died sorting coal. She slams the shovel into the ground. I'm not dying for pennies. Silence. Then thunderous applause. Even the pigeons seem impressed. Historians still debate how organized these early strikes really were. Some say they were chaotic flashes of resistance. Others argue they laid the foundation for labor reform. From where you're standing, it just feels like people finally saying no. You spot Nell with a chalkboard. She's tallying who's in, who's out, who's undecided. The undecided column is suspiciously long. Percy the rat sits nearby, nibbling on what might be a sandwich. Union rat, respect. Midday arrives with no work bell, no lunch whistle. Your body itches for routine, so you eat a crust. Maisie shares an apple. Someone passes around soup in a hat. You wonder if this is what freedom feels like: awkward, underfed, and strangely exhilarating. Later, Chisel arrives. Not at the square. He's not suicidal. He stays at the edge, glaring from beneath his hat. He's wearing a different coat, less tailored, more desperate. His mustache droops slightly. He spots you. You spot him. He nods. You don't nod back. He turns and walks away. Rumors spread that the bosses are holding meetings, that they're considering raises or firings or both. No one knows. You spend the afternoon helping Maisie write a chant. She wants something short. You suggest less soot, more soup. She loves it. It catches on. By evening, people are singing it to the tune of God Save the Queen. Probably treason, definitely satisfying. The square turns into a camp, crates for seats, blankets passed hand to hand. Someone strings a line of lamps, and suddenly it glows like a proper village. There's even laughter, real laughter. You don't hear coughing for nearly 12 minutes. A record. Dot appears just before nightfall, holding a potato. She offers it to Maggie, who peels it with her shovel like a pro. They roast it over a barrel fire. It smells like actual hope. You lie on your back, watching the sky turn from gray to indigo. No cold today, no cart injuries, no mustard colored tea, just stars. You forgot they even existed. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. And for the first time in forever, you don't feel like a smudge. You feel like a spark. You wake to the smell of coal. Not the fresh kind, if there is such a thing, but the sharp, lingering ghost of it. Even after 2 days off the yard, the soot still clings to your coat, your fingernails, your dreams. It's in the corners of your socks and behind your earlobes. You suspect it's now part of your DNA. Still, you don't mind today, because today's not a work day. It's collect rent, pay bread, avoid starving day. You pat your coat for coins. A single halfpenny falls out and hits the floor like it's mocking you. Maisie once called money the echo of disappointment. Today it's more like a whispered insult. You head into the street and join the flow of others, doing the same tired dance, hustle for coins, trade for food, avoid the landlord's eyes. You pass the same window Lizzie used to peer into, the one with the dress she swore she'd wear just once before dying. The dress is gone now, probably bought by someone with a wallet and no appreciation for taffeta. A boy offers you a tin of matches for a penny. You offer him half a crust. He declines. Fair. You turn down the alley toward the coal merchants, because even though you sort coal, you still buy it too. That's the trick of it. The same black lumps that broke your back all week now cost you your supper. It's like digging your own grave and then paying rent on the plot. The coal man nods as you approach. 6 pence for a half sack. You raise your eyebrows. 4 last week. He shrugs. Queen's taxes, new weights, someone's chicken died. Who knows? You give him 5 and a dirty look. The coal he gives you isn't the good stuff. It's mostly slack, fine powder and sharp crumbs that burn fast and clog chimneys. But it'll keep your toes from freezing off, which is about all you're aiming for. You haul the sack back toward your street, arms burning from the effort. On the way, you pass the bakery. Again, you try not to look at the fresh loaves in the window, all golden and smug. Inside the bakery is someone who's never touched coal. You can tell by their hands, soft, clean, shaped like they've only ever lifted teacups and mild anxieties. They glance at you, wrinkle their nose, and turn away. Standard. You keep walking. Your landlord catches you at the door. Rent, he says. You sigh. Give me 2 days. He snorts. You said that 2 days ago. You gesture at your sack of coal. I chose heat over being dry. He shrugs. Both are optional. You manage to slip inside before the conversation spirals. In the room, your cousin is boiling something. It smells like turnips and hope. Good news, he says. Someone left stew by the boiler again. You raise an eyebrow. Dead rats in it? He shrugs. Only one. Luxury. You divvy up the meal and sit by the small stove. The coal sputters, hisses, then glows. You hold your hands near the warmth and sigh. The room glows amber. You almost forget about the holes in the floor and the fact that the chair has 3 legs and a strong sense of betrayal. You think about money. Not much of it, really. Just enough to notice how often it's missing. Every penny you earn goes in a loop. Rent, bread, coal, soap, if you're feeling fancy, and back again. The yard gives you wages, but the store takes them. The store gives you bread, but the baker raises prices. The baker pays taxes, the landlord raises rent, and you go back to the yard. Round and round. Historians call this the cycle of dependency. You call it the treadmill to nowhere. Maisie once said, even the rats have savings. Then she threw Percy a crumb. Percy is thriving. You think about that poster you saw yesterday. Factory work available. Must be nimble, sober, and missing fewer than 3 fingers. Tempting, but you'd rather keep the rest of your limbs intact, if possible. You stretch your legs. Your boots are steaming near the fire, and your toes are finally waking up. One of them might be broken. You'll deal with that later. Your cousin asks, think the strike will stick? You shrug. Depends who breaks first, us or them. He nods. Outside, you hear the distant clang of a church bell. Sunday. Time to pretend everything's fine. You grab your cleaner shirt, meaning the one that smells less like smoke and more like mildew, and tug it on. Your cousin does the same. You both nod at each other. Church isn't for God. It's for appearances. If you're seen in the pews, people assume you're still part of the world. If you vanish too long, people assume you've given up, that you're sick. Or worse, a union organizer. You walk to the church in silence, passing neighbors with the same tired faces. You spot Dot, holding a flower she likely stole from a grave. It looks oddly elegant, against her soot-covered sleeve. Inside the chapel, the sermon is on suffering. Again. The vicar talks about trials, fire, and the virtue of endurance. Maisie leans over and whispers, he ever tried lifting coal in a corset? You smother a laugh. Outside, the clouds gather again. Another week looms. The fire burns low, and the loop begins again. The whispers start on a Tuesday. Not loud ones, not speeches. Just little half sentences passed between crates and under breath. Tommy said the pit lads are planning something. Someone chalked a rat on Chisel's door last night. Bosses meeting in the counting house after dark. At first you ignore it. Rumors in the yard are as common as soot in your socks. Most of them lead nowhere. Just talk to help people feel less helpless. But these feel different. Thicker, more deliberate. You catch Maisie staring at the foreman's office longer than usual. Something up, you ask. She doesn't answer right away. Then, What do you know about bricks? You blink. They hurt when thrown? She nods once. That's the important part. Turns out the whisper network is real, not organized, just quietly coordinated. Messages scratched in coal dust, notes passed in bread crusts. Even dots started blinking in a suspiciously rhythmic pattern. Might be Morse code, might just be tired. You hear of another walkout in Manchester. A foundry locked its gates. Another in Sheffield saw the workers refuse to load coal onto the rail. The papers say it's criminal. The workers say it's a beginning. Someone mentions pamphlets. You've never seen one. Apparently, they're like tiny books full of fire and outrage. Illegal, naturally. Very fashionable. Jasper whispers that one's been spotted in the bakery, under the loaf labeled rye. You make a note to ask for rye bread and maybe revolution. That evening, Nell comes to you holding a scrap of cloth. It's not hers, it's Lizzie's, found near the riverbank, stiff with cold. No one says it aloud, but you all understand. Some people escape the yard, others don't survive it. Maisie says nothing for the rest of the night. The next morning, a brick appears, not thrown, not shattered, just placed very deliberately on the foreman's desk. It has a rat carved into it. No one claims it. Chisel arrives, sees it, and pauses. He doesn't touch it, just stares, then walks away. The yard feels charged, like a storm is thinking about forming. Then a notice appears. New rules. Effective immediately, no idle talking, no gathering in groups, all workers to be searched at end of shift, no loitering after dismissal. Signed in ink and ego. You read it twice. Then tear it off the post. Everyone sees you do it. No one stops you. Later, as you sort the day's coal, your fingers land on something unexpected. A folded note, tucked between the lumps like a secret. You glance around. No one's watching. You open it slowly. Scrawled in charcoal. Thursday, midnight, behind the brickyard. Bring no light. You stare at it for a long time. Maisie sees it, raises an eyebrow. You slide it into your coat, just in case. Historians still debate whether these grassroots meetings were spontaneous or planned by early labor organizers. From your side of the coal pile, they feel inevitable. When enough people cough the same way, they start speaking in code. You go back to work. You hum under your breath. Less soot, more soup. Maisie joins in. Others follow. The chant returns. Not shouted, not bold, but steady. Rhythmic. The rhythm of people who've had enough. At lunch, someone passes around a crust with yes carved into it. You nibble the edge. Tastes like rebellion. Thursday arrives. The yard is quiet. Too quiet. Chisel watches everyone like a man afraid of his own staff. You avoid his eyes. Keep your head down. Work your shift. At the end, you let them search you. They find nothing because you brought nothing. Just a note in your boot. Smudged, but still legible. That night, you pretend to sleep. Then, at midnight, you slip out the back door and into the fog. Behind the brickyard, a dozen shapes wait in silence. Maisie is there. Maggie, too. Even Dot. You nod once, and the meeting begins. The brickyard is quieter than a prayer. 12 of you huddle in the shadows, wrapped in damp coats and urgency. No torches, no lanterns, just the faint light of the moon slipping between the broken teeth of the rooftop. The bricks around you radiate cold. They absorb your breath, your silence, your doubt. Maisie is the first to speak. We can't wait for them to fix this. Everyone nods. There's no debate. You all understand what this means. The blisters, the lungfuls of soot, the stolen wages, the way Lizzie vanished, and no one came looking. Maggie steps forward next. She's holding something wrapped in cloth. A pamphlet. It's been passed from town to town, through bread baskets and coat linings. She reads aloud, no more than 10 hours per day, equal pay, safe housing, no child under 10 to work in the pits. You close your eyes for a moment. 10 hours. Imagine. The demands sound dreamy, distant, like a warm bath that hasn't been invented yet. Still, your fingers tighten into fists. Dot takes the pamphlet and tucks it into her corset like it belongs there. Maybe it does. It's the most revolutionary thing in the brickyard, second only to Percy the rat, who's sitting on a stone with an expression of grim approval. We need to spread it, says Jasper. Not just us. The lads in the mill, the girls in the match factory, the boys sweeping chimneys, even the laundry women. Everyone. You look around. There's no shouting, no cheering, just resolve. The quiet kind. The kind that rearranges history in whispers. Won't the bosses retaliate? Someone asks. Maisie snorts. What are they gonna do? Pay us less? Nell adds. Maybe they'll poison our soup. Joke's on them. They already did. That gets a low ripple of laughter. Brief but real. You decide to speak. We don't need a revolution overnight, you say. We just need to be seen, heard. If enough people say no, they can't fire us all. Maggie adds, and if they do, we still have our hands, our brains, our mouths. They don't own those. Historians still argue about how coordinated these early resistance cells were, whether they genuinely believed they could win, or whether it was just the final act of dignity before collapse. You feel both hope and hopelessness, living in the same ribcage. Before dispersing, you each take a scrap of paper, copy the words of the pamphlet, plan to leave them tucked in coal carts, under loaves of bread, inside hymnals at the church. Rebellion by stationery. As you leave the brickyard, someone hums that little chant again. Less soot, more soup. You smile. The next day, something odd happens. No one shows up for the morning bell. Chisel stands at the gate, red-faced and frantic, his mustache twitching in Morse code. He bangs a pan, yells something about consequences and permanent dismissal. No one responds. You and Maisie watch from the bakery steps. He turns on his heel and storms back into the yard, muttering. 10 minutes later, the first cart of coal is still sitting unsorted. By noon, it's overflowing. That afternoon, more flyers appear. Not yours this time. Printed ones. Neat ink. From someone else. Somewhere else. Workers of the yard. Know your worth. Know their fear. You look at Maisie. She looks at you. It's spreading. You pass Percy the rat a crumb of bread. Well done, comrade. You spend the rest of the day posting scraps. Behind fences. In crates. Under the coal itself. You leave one in Chisel's mailbox, folded into a flower shape just to annoy him. That night no one meets at the brickyard, but you don't need to. The spark has caught. People talk more openly. They share stories of other strikes, other walkouts, other victories. Small ones mostly. A boss who gave in. A workday reduced by an hour. A coal yard in Liverpool where no one's died for a whole month. Tiny miracles. You eat dinner by the stove, just cabbage and broth, but it tastes better than usual. You think about the empire, all the railroads, the steel, the ships, all fueled by coal, and all of that coal sorted by hands, like yours. Fingers blistered, eyes stung, spines bent. It's your labor holding up the world, and you've started pulling your hands away, one by one. The next day, Chisel doesn't shout. He asks. Back to work, he mumbles. No one moves. He shifts nervously, clears his throat. A 10-hour shift, starting today, effective immediately. A pause. Then someone claps. It spreads. A cheer rises, not loud, not raucous, but steady. honest, not a win, but a start. It's funny what counts as a victory. 10 hours instead of 12. No change in pay, no safer equipment, still the same sharp coal, same broken carts, same cold wind whistling through your scarf. But the shift feels different because now you chose to stay. And somehow that changes everything. The foremen don't bark as much. Chisel keeps his office door shut. The overseers walk the yard like people suddenly aware they have necks. Necks that might at any moment attract bricks. You notice the changes in small ways. Dot brings a thermos. You didn't know she owned one. Maggie hums more. Maisie has started braiding her hair before work, as if expecting to be seen. You still sort coal, still breathe soot, still flinch when your back spasms halfway through the third pile. But now there's a rhythm to it. Not just muscle memory, but purpose. The piles don't own you anymore. The coal doesn't win. And the others, the merchants, the shoemakers, even the butcher, who once said coal dust made his meat smell political, have started treating you differently. With curiosity, with a flicker of respect. The vicar preached a sermon last Sunday about the dignity of labor and listening to the voice of the common man. You almost laughed. He used to glance over you like a draft. Even Percy the rat seems to strut now. You catch him riding a lump of coal down a chute like it's his personal carriage. King of the yard. Long may he reign. Still, there are setbacks. Nell falls ill. The cough that's haunted her for weeks finally catches up. She doesn't come to the yard Monday or Tuesday. On Wednesday, someone says she's in the infirmary. No one knows if she'll make it. Maisie spends all Wednesday quiet. She drops her shovel at one point, stares at the pile for a long minute, and walks away. Doesn't even take her soup. You don't chase her. You just cover her row. Because that's how it works now. You all hold each other up. When boots fail, when backs give, when hope flickers. Historians still argue whether early coal yard movements were truly united or just a collection of personal grievances. They weren't there. They didn't see Dot cry when the shift ended early, and no one said a word, just passed her a biscuit like it was holy. You feel it more than you can explain, in the way people share now, not just food or gloves, but stories, ideas, dreams that once felt ridiculous. Maggie talks about starting a laundry. Proper one, no corsets, no bosses with mustaches shaped like weapons. You say you'd write the flyers. Jasper wants to train rats to deliver messages. No one questions this. Even Chisel seems different. One day, he actually says, "Good afternoon." Everyone stares at him like he's grown a second head. He clears his throat, mutters, "Never mind," and retreats. You think about Lizzie sometimes, where she ended up, if she ever made it past the river, if someone helped her. You imagine she's somewhere warm, maybe braiding her hair too. You pass the same bakery. The dress is back. Different one. Same display. Still untouchable. Maisie pauses in front of it. "I want one," she says. You blink. "You want to wear it?" "No," she replies. "I want to burn it. Then make a better one." You grin. "With pockets?" Obviously. You walk on. The city hasn't changed, but your place in it has. There's talk now of a formal group, a union. Not just meetings in the dark, but real rules, ledgers, dues, maybe even pins. It's not just the coal yards anymore. It's the rail workers, the mill hands, the soap girls, a spiderweb of struggle, tied together with chalk messages and badly folded pamphlets. You sign your name to the first list, just initials in charcoal. But still, it's yours. You get your first half day off in months. You don't know what to do with it. So you walk through neighborhoods you've never entered, past parks where children scream in joy instead of fear, into a library where the clerk eyes you suspiciously until you ask for a book about coal. His eyebrow lifts. He fetches it anyway. The pages are clean, crisp, no soot. You read until your fingers twitch to write. Back at home, your cousin is mending his boots. He nods at you. Heard about the 10-hour rule. You nod back. Might even become 9. He grins. Careful, that's sedition. You laugh. Then you write your first line. The hands that sort the empire's coal could tear it down if they ever stopped shaking. Not poetry, but it's true. And maybe, just maybe, someone will read it someday. Some mornings you still wake coughing. The cold doesn't leave easy. It lingers in lungs, in fingernails, in the lines of your palms like a dark lifeline. But now, when you cough, you also hear other voices, laughing, arguing, singing off key, telling stories you didn't think you'd ever hear in this yard. Stories about progress. You cross the yard and see Maggie organizing a list of names, not for punishment, for membership. She holds a stub of chalk like it's a sword. Behind her, someone's painted a sign on a plank of wood. Yard Association, United for Better. The U is backward. No one fixes it. It stays that way. A crooked badge of pride. Maisie's wearing boots that match. Both feet, laces and all. She got them secondhand from a railway man who heard about the walkout and called it bloody brilliant. He gave her a discount. Said his daughter works in the match factory. Said she'd lit a flyer on fire by accident. Still counts, he said. You helped Jasper repair the sorting bin. Not because management asked, but because you want it fixed. No one's falling through anymore. Not on your watch. There's a new girl. Tiny. Maybe 8 or 9. Brought in by an uncle who needed the coin. She's wearing sleeves too long for her arms and eyes too old for her face. Dot sees her, walks over, hands her a broom, then says, "Don't touch the coal yet. You'll sort paper for now." The girl blinks. Dot shrugs. Boss said work, not bleed. You think about the pamphlet you left in the church hymnal, the one tucked between Abide with Me and Deliver Us, O Lord. You hope someone opened to it and got both kinds of gospel in one sitting. Giselle still comes around, less red-faced now, less shouting. One day, he even holds a meeting with chairs, sits down, asks questions, actually listens. He looks like it hurts him, but he does it. He still wears that hat, like it owes him something, but he doesn't sneer as much. You eat lunch on crates like always, except now it's shared lunch. Someone's brought jam, real jam. It spreads badly, but tastes like summer and defiance. There's talk of another rally, a real one, in daylight, with speeches and everything. Maggie's practicing hers in the mirror of a shattered window pane. Her voice shakes at first, then grows bold. She ends with, "We were never meant to survive this way." And no one claps. They just nod, like they already knew, but needed someone to say it. Historians may one day trace change to this coal yard, this month, these people. Or maybe they'll miss it entirely, bury it beneath legislation and lawmaker names. That's fine. You'll know the truth. Change didn't come in a speech or a riot. It came in a moment, when one shovel dropped, then another, when someone shared their soup, or offered a glove, or folded a pamphlet in the shape of a rat and left it on Chisel's desk. Little things, tiny acts of defiance stitched together into something larger. You finish your shift early, voluntarily. The work's done, the piles are clean, and no one's bled today. A miracle. Maisie sits beside you. "You still writing?" she asks. You nod. She smiles. "Good. Write about this." You grin. "You think people care?" She shrugs. Someday they might. You walk home slower now, not out of exhaustion, but choice. You pass the bakery. There's no dress in the window anymore. Just bread. You buy a loaf with your own coins. The crust is hard. You don't mind. At home, your cousin is already asleep, mouth open, snoring like a bagpipe in distress. You sit by the stove, light a coal, the good kind. You pull out your pencil, write on the back of the work slip. We were tired, but not done, hurt, but not broken. And though we sorted their coal, we were never ashes. Then you smile. You tuck the paper into the cracks of the wall, between the boards, where the wind gets in, a message for someone in the future. Maybe a warning, maybe a promise. You lie back, close your eyes, and breathe. And now, as the fire dims and the coals give off their last warm sigh, you stretch your limbs, feeling every ache and every memory settle softly into place. The yard is silent now. No shouting foreman, no creaking carts, just the occasional distant hoot of a train and the slow crackle of time folding into night. You imagine the coal dust gently settling over the yard, not as a burden, but as a blanket, quiet, still, and no longer something to fight. The boots come off. The scarf falls away. You run a hand over your brow and find no soot, just skin, tired but alive. The stories you've lived, of hardship, of resistance, of jam on dry bread, become a quiet echo inside your chest. You are no longer just a worker. You are a witness, a survivor, a soft spoken rebel with calloused hands and a sharp eye. Outside, the fog wraps the city in velvet. The stars, barely visible through chimney smoke, blink slowly, like they're keeping watch. And in the distance, faint but clear, a shovel hits the ground, not from exhaustion, but from choice. It can rest now. You can rest now. Let your breath slow, your thoughts soften, and the world fade like soot swirling into twilight. Sleep well, you coal sifter of the empire. You made it through. And in your small, stubborn way, you changed everything. Good night. End of script. Sweet dreams.